This is Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Welcome to the podcast. Chris Graham and Jerry Carter. It's Friday, and we've had a whole week of ACC basketball. We got a nice weekend coming up. A lot to discuss. And also, poor Jerry out west, shoveling snow all week. Here on the East Coast, I mean, today I went out for a run at 65 degrees outside. So good weather for us, bad weather out west. I'm sure it'll come our way eventually. So Jerry, you've been watching some ACC in between shoveling all the snow you've had out your way. What kind of stands out to you with what you've been able to see in the ACC? Obviously, a couple of nice performances by Duke, Virginia with a bounce back win at North Carolina, highlighting things, and we have a big weekend coming up.
Well, I know we're going to get to talk about the current Duke and UVA team, so I'm going to go just a little bit of a throwback UVA style to start with. The first thing that stuck out to me, and when the Clemson at Miami game was on ESPN, and I watched that from start to finish, and because you can probably remember this as well as I do, a few years back when Coach Lato was at UVA, and my daughter was in the process of attending UVA. It was something to where Virginia had a chance to win its first outright ACC championship in a long, long time.
Yes.
So we had an opportunity to take a plane down to Miami because we were going to be in the building when UVA clinched its ACC championship. Really excited. Had never been to the building. Had never spent a whole lot of time on the campus. So, wow, it was going to be fun. And because we, of course, in the UVA team section, we're 8 feet from, Coach Lato. And the building was so dormant, you could actually hear every word getting spoke in the building. It was unbelievable what it felt like, or sounded like, to watch a basketball game with nobody in the building with you. And I thought to myself, that's sad. And it was a learning experience. The problem is that no energy to feed off of. Wasn't our night, and we lost the game to an average Miami team, if you will. Well, if you watch the Miami Clemson game, if you took a look at the crowd in any way, shape, or form, you could see there was people in like the first 6 rows, and that was it.
Yeah.
And Clemson had finally, and they shook off the NC State loss, which I didn't think they were going to be able to do, and had won 4 in a row. They were back to where they were on the inside of the bubble instead of the outside of the bubble, and they went down there, and it was an entertaining game. And you even mentioned, when we were texting about the end of the game being exciting.
Yeah.
What a poor time, or bad timing, if you will, to play a game that you really, really needed to win and just not have the energy. And there was a point where I even noted it with my pen. 9 minutes to go in the game. The score of 9 minutes to go in the first half. The score is just a ridiculous number of 11-6. And you're sitting there and you're going, wow, is this really happening? And it brought me back to that day. And from a UVA standpoint, if you're a diehard fan, you got to remember what happened next. I looked at my daughter and I said, don't worry about it. We're still going to go through Wake Forest, and we're going to beat Wake Forest, and we're going to win the ACC championship there. So, yes, after returning home, we drove down there to Wake Forest and sadly came up empty that day, too. But and that's the flashback I had for UVA standpoint, watching the Miami Clemson game. And Miami, when they were brought into the ACC, and I know it was all about the money, all about the TV network. I'm just not sure what exactly the ACC benefited from having Miami. Yeah. But feel bad for the basketball kids. Their team as well not be able to play in front of anybody.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said there about what does Miami bring to the ACC. We brought them in for football. They haven't been successful in football. They haven't added to the ACC in football in any way, shape, or form. They won one Coastal Championship last year, lost to Clemson on the way to the ACC Championship, and nobody goes to their games. You know, they'll get people for Miami, Florida State football at home, but they don't get any other people for their other home games, and certainly basketball. It is tough to create your own energy. It's interesting. I've noticed that watching a few games this week. Of course, Boston College Pitt at Boston College, it looked like it was more like the attendance you'd see for a wrestling meet or a volleyball match than it was for a basketball game. It was embarrassing the number of empty seats. You talked about the first 6 rows at the Miami game were filled up. The first 6 rows were even empty in Boston College's arena this week for that game. It almost made you think, what is there some sort of a flu outbreak? Did 2 feet of snow on the ground? I don't know what's going on here. It's just embarrassing as far as that goes. And even Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech at home in Blacksburg, they're playing Virginia Monday night on Big Monday. That place will be rollicking on Monday night with Virginia in town. But with Georgia Tech in town, a lot of empty seats on the TV. You know, when you see empty seats from the TV camera across, that is not good. That's not good TV. You're supposed to fill those seats up. Even if you have to move people there, you put people in those seats. Make sure it looks good on TV. Didn't do that. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see that. I mean, I'm used to now, going to, November games. Virginia plays St. Francis, and the place is packed all the way to the top. And seeing ACC games that, have scores of empty seats is a surprise and a little sad to see, given just how much I love basketball anyway.
Well, the flip side of that, and of course I'm paying a whole lot of attention this year, the Pitt that I witnessed has paid the past because the cable down there are up there coaching. And I noticed, of course, when Duke comes to town, everybody and their brother wants to be in the building. Now, this past week, it hosted NC State. So don't get me to wait till we're winning and then we'll show up. Pitt hosted NC State, and they did. They played NC State to the buzzer, but they played it in front of a packed gym. And if you're going to be big-time basketball and you're going to play in the ACC, I don't want to sound like Saban when he was questioning the fan level, interest level, noise level for the Alabama football. Yeah, it was disappointing for some of those. The Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, that's really a shame because Virginia Tech's a fun building to watch a game. And they can get pretty raucous, but I guess they have to have extra reason to be there. So you'll have that this week, and we'll see how the rest of it plays out. But the one thing, Chris, I noticed, and talking about the ACC in general, normally you get X number of bids to the NCAA, and then after the NCAA, the question becomes how many teams will go to the NIT. And we talked all year long about the bottom of the conference, and we now have the bottom of the conference at 16. And to call it the bottom, they have to have 3 wins or less in the conference. Because we're looking at something this year where the question is, do we get 8 or 9 in the Big Dance? This could possibly be a year where the ACC does not even send a single team to the NIT. You're at a point where, Notre Dame is hovering above 500, and of course they got a pretty tough game coming up. But I didn't realize just how low those numbers were. And not that there's going to be a tough uproar if the ACC is not in the NIT, but in a normal year, you have 3 or 4 teams that don't make the tournament. And somebody will squeeze out some kind of a run in the NIT to show you, hey, we could have been there. But the gap this year is just so large that it could feasibly be that nobody goes to the NIT, depending on how Clemson and NC State either go to the Big Dance or not.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm a little worried about Clemson and NC State right now. NC State, gosh, a couple weeks ago, you weren't worried about them at all. And now, they're 6-6 in the ACC. Some tough games, obviously, this weekend at Duke, starting that tough stretch or continuing their tough stretch they've had And Clemson, that loss the other night, really, I mean, no, it's hard to say it's, you should be too upset about losing to Miami. Miami, yes, is only now 3-9 in the ACC. They've been playing well of late, though. I saw them in person in Charlottesville a couple weeks ago. Now, Virginia didn't have Ty Jerome, but they played Virginia tight. It was a 10-point win for Virginia. Then they go to Carolina and take Carolina to overtime. They should have won that game. They shouldn't have gone to even overtime. Luke May hit a three with about 11 seconds to go to send that one to overtime, and Chris Likes was shooting the lights out, but Kobe White was just a little better. Miami's been playing better of late. Credit to Jim Larranaga for getting that depleted roster to at least play tough. They're making themselves a tough out. Good for them. But yeah, Clemson losing that game really put themselves behind the eight ball. I'm just impressed with Florida State, what they've been able to do to come back. They had that swoon that started. It maybe started. It started with the ACC opener losing so bad to Virginia. They had the game with Duke. It seemed like they had that one in hand, and then Cam Reddish hits the three at the buzzer to win, and kind of lost a couple more games after that. They've come back and won 5 straight. So good for Florida State that they've turned that around. And Syracuse and Louisville and Virginia Tech all at 8-4, all solid at this stage. But yeah, a little worried about State, a little worried about Clemson. The way the ACC scheduled this season, it seems like we scheduled all the good games here down the stretch. For TV, that's great. For the teams themselves, that's not great because they got to play all these tough games and continue to play their way into postseason play. But yeah, Clemson and NC State have some work to do. But I agree, Jerry. It's interesting. Notre Dame, their schedule down the stretch is going to really make it hard for them to stay above 500. Boston College is above 500, and that's it. Pittsburgh maybe can play their way back over, but that 500 mark being a sort of a demarcation line. I don't see any of those 6 necessarily finishing over 500, and so yeah, it could be feast or famine. It could be 9 in the big dance and none in the other dances. That'd be kind of an interesting situation.
Well, the one thing that stuck out this week it was one of the ESPN broadcasts during one of the games. They were talking about that the Big Ten. It was the night that Penn State had a big shocking win, and I listened to something I just don't listen to very often. That's why I'm being an ACC diehard. They were talking about the teams in the bottom of the Big Ten are capable of pulling off an upset. And this year, that's just not true in the ACC. And I don't ever recall feeling that way. I don't know that I feel that way this year. I guess I should say I don't recall hearing that speak. When you're talking about, and we won't know until the dust settles. We know that Pitt did get a win. I think their 2 wins were Louisville and Florida State. And Notre Dame has had some games where they played okay. And as you said, Miami's getting better. So we'll see at the end of the year, when we look back, to see if any of the bottom 6 took one off the big 3. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be interesting to see that. And I guess going back to the week that just has taken place, the Duke UVA game was a phenomenal basketball game. And I will start out by saying this. If Virginia was playing anybody else in the country that night, I think they win the game by 15. I think that Virginia, and again, I know that it's easy when the team doesn't win, it's easy to say woulda, coulda, shoulda. I felt like UVA played their best game of the year against Duke. Now, that changed 48 hours later when they did play their best game of the year against UNC. But I thought the effort from Virginia in that game was really, really impressive. And I know you're a lot more surrounded by people with different thoughts. I just kind of anxious to hear what you're thinking on that one. But like I said, I just thought that Duke played at a level that in the first half that it was. I don't even know how to put them into words as far as the avalanche that came, and that Virginia actually dug back in and made a game of it. So that was my thought on the game there. What was your take watching that over at JPJ?
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where Virginia did what they wanted to do defensively, and Duke made shots. I think this all the time when I'm watching a game, basketball, football, whatever the case. Effort is pretty much the same. If in a basketball game, for example, yeah, you can drive to the basket more. That takes a little more effort. But for the most part, when you shoot a shot, the difference between a make or a miss is so infinitesimal in terms of effort. So the effort was there on the part of both teams. Duke actually did what Virginia wanted them to do. They shot 21 threes out of 46 field goal attempts. That's not a ratio that should work. 3 nights later, Duke shoots 7 of 28 from three. That's more in line. It's a little below their season average, but it's more in line with their season average. Season average is 30%. They shot 13 of 21 from three against Virginia. That's uncharacteristic. They haven't done anything close to that this season. They probably won't the rest of the season. They won't need to, but they won't. So there aren't going to be many teams out there that it's going to force Duke to shoot almost half its shots from three. Duke against just about everybody else, if not everybody else, is going to get in the lane. They're going to get a lot of dunks, a lot of layups, a lot of floaters, a lot of fouls, and they're going to have their way with just about everybody. And I'm probably being nice saying just about. They're going to have their way with everybody. Even at Gonzaga, who beat them, Duke scored points. They just couldn't stop Gonzaga in that game. So, you're not going to stop Duke. By rights, Virginia making Duke shoot 21 threes, that's how you beat Duke. They just made 13 of 21. And you're not going to beat anybody shooting 13 of 21 from three. That's 39 points on 21 shots. That's an effective shooting percentage of about 95%. You're not going to beat a team shooting 95% effective field goal percentage of 95% on 21 shots, half their shots basically from the field. So, I left that night thinking, hey, there's no shame in this loss. You made Duke play the way you wanted them to play. They made shots. They won't do that again. If Virginia plays that game plan, if they're fortunate enough to meet up with Duke again, either in the ACC tournament or the NCAA tournament, which we think both might be possible, if they play the same game plan and have the same execution, yeah, if Duke shoots 6 of 21 instead of 13 of 21, that's between 18 and 21 less points for Duke in a 10-point win. Yeah, Virginia probably wins the game, but Virginia. I was impressed that with that onslaught. I mean, starting 5 of 5 from three, 8 of 10, 12 of 16. All those numbers, all those crazy numbers Duke was at different points in the game from three. Virginia cut the lead at halftime to I think it was 4. They cut it to 5 twice in the second half. Duke was making everything they threw towards the basket, and Virginia still kept it a game. So, I like the way you put it, Jerry. Virginia would have beaten anybody else that night by 10 or 15 points. I think Duke that night, the way they were shooting, they beat anybody else in the country. Tennessee, Kentucky, anybody else. They beat whoever they're playing by 30 points. In fact, we've seen them beat Kentucky by 34 on a similar shooting night. Obviously, much slower pace for this game, but no, we've seen Duke play that well against a elite level team and blow their doors off them. Virginia hung around and made it interesting a lot longer than they had right to do so.
It was funny and again, I know that my fanism, if you will, is different from the average person. And for both Duke and UVA this year, my slogan is Minneapolis for fun. It doesn't matter who wins the ACC regular season. It doesn't matter the ACC tournament. I want these two teams to get to go to Minneapolis and play on that stage. And I don't know if there was anybody else out there thinking the same thing. But my Virginia to Minneapolis radar, or meter, if you will, went up after that game. I was sitting there, and that was the one thing when last year, not to rehash the tournament last year, but how was Virginia act to when somebody was playing out of their form? No, there was no deer in the headlights for it. None whatsoever. And that is, in my mind, as good of a look as you're going to have. And the fact that they played so well, played as a team, did not switch anything up. And I think the players' game in that game was Zion's block of Hunter's three. That ball, Hunter was open, and that was a good look. It was a 5-point game. He makes that. it's a 2-point game. Like I said, it's one of those things to where I left the game thinking, wow, I really think Virginia's going to do it. Now, if they can just follow that up and go down the road and do it on the road, then I think it's just going to seal the deal. Unfortunately, you can't just put them in Minneapolis. They've got to win those 4 games. But that was my takeaway from last Saturday. I felt it was amazing to me, the quality of play, the no flinching. It would have been very easy to say, okay, these guys have done that. There's nothing we can do. I didn't see an ounce of quit in these guys, and it impressed me a great deal.
Let me throw a couple things in, and then we'll switch to the next 2 games of the week that were so interesting, Virginia, Carolina, and then, of course, the Duke-Louisville game, which, I mean, both those games, we've had so much in the last few days to talk about. The Williamson block, yes, got a lot of attention. I think something gets lost in that highlight, and it's not going to be shown because I don't know how the TV picked it up. The TV kind of saw it from the back angle or the side angle from behind the play. I'm in the gym. I'm actually on the other side of the baseline, and the pass, I think it was Jerome who drove the lane. He drove under the basket, kicked it out to Hunter, who was open in the corner. The pass was at his feet, and Hunter had to reach down. I mean, it wasn't in rhythm. He had to reach down. It was at his feet. The ball kind of was on the floor. He slowly rises up because it's not a great pass. He's open. He's got to shoot the shot, or at least he thinks he's open when the ball's there because Williamson was actually defending Jerome on Jerome's drive. And then, so theoretically, yeah, I should have plenty of time to shoot this. But yes, the ball was low. That forced his release to be slower because there were people asking after the game, why was he taking his time shooting that shot? He was trying to catch the ball. He was trying to get the ball in his hands the right way. Not to take away from how athletic the play looked. It just doesn't happen if that pass isn't, and it's the little things. Another thing I thought I'd throw out there, Jerry, on TV, you saw it. We were in the arena. We saw it. It was actually my wife who texted me to say LeBron James is there. Of course, in the arena, you don't always know who's there. I was on the opposite side of the floor from where LeBron James sat with, it was Rajon Rondo, his agent, what's his agent's name? Rich Paul, I think it is. And then another teammate from the Lakers, a couple other guys from his group. They flew down from Philadelphia. They were playing in Philadelphia the next night, so they flew down and took the game in. But I didn't even know. We didn't all know right away. But as my wife's texting me, then the big screen, JPJ, they put, hey, LeBron James is here. You could hear the buzz. You could feel the buzz in the arena. But when we saw LeBron, we saw Rajon Rondo in the arena. It wasn't until after the game I realized, that other guy there is his agent. That's what he's there for. The buzz was, how great it is LeBron's here. And then you realize, I wrote a column about this. I wanted to get your thoughts on it too, Jerry. He was there not to watch a basketball game, if you ask me. I also, and I'll say this, I wrote a column about this, so folks who haven't read the column, you're hearing me say it now. When I sit in the media section, there's the sheet of assignments where you sit. The scouts, for some reason, who come to a game, NBA scouts come to a game, are listed on that sheet with us because they sit in our section. So there were lots of scouts. There were over 30 scouts at the game on Saturday night. And, teams represented that you would assume would be represented. The likes of the Phoenix Suns, a team that's towards the bottom of the NBA standings, are going to be a lottery team. The Washington Wizards had a scout there. I'm trying to think who else. At the bottom, basically, if you were the bottom of the league standings, you had at least one scout there, maybe two. The Lakers had two scouts there. Now, the Lakers are right now on the fringe of the playoffs. LeBron's back. They're going to be playing better, all that kind of thing. So all of a sudden, the Lakers have two scouts there. You got LeBron there. You got his agent there. They just tried to engineer that trade, failed to do so with Anthony Davis. And now, are they trying to figure out a way to get the first pick in the draft or at least sign Zion Williamson to their agency, the Clutch management agency that basically LeBron controls? As cool as it was, Jerry, that LeBron James was at the game, when I thought about that more, it was kind of icky because I didn't think he was there as a fan. I think he was there as a businessman. And I don't know. I wasn't after I thought about it, I wasn't too happy with that.
Well, it's interesting from that standpoint because that was the first thing my first thought on this, and again, it's all generation. I saw Michael Jordan's blue-white game as a freshman at UNC. I believe that there isn't any question that the greatest basketball player ever was Michael Jordan. Now, in my life, I can't imagine what Bill Russell was like. Okay, I've seen footage, but I've always believed that Jordan just showed up and played basketball. And don't you? And where LeBron is concerned, I've always felt like that he was very interested in running the league, in running the league in every manner that he can. And, you know, you hear the situations about what's going on in L.A. and, hey, his camp's not happy with Luke Walton. And one of the coolest things that I've ever seen in my sports lifetime was when he went to the Miami Heat, and he wanted a new coach. He didn't want to play for Louisville there. And Pat Riley said, yeah, that doesn't work here. That doesn't work here. You're not going to get to name your coach. Now, that's the only time that's ever happened to him. And you're in a situation to where it's going to be interesting where the loss to Atlanta, following after they were there, the loss to Atlanta, that was a very laid-back reaction in the locker room when you're interviewing LeBron. Yeah, well, you know, we're just going to have to go clear our head and come back and refocus. I'm sitting there in my mind going, wow, it feels like it's coming off the rails.
Yeah.
And now, add to your same story. I don't know if you saw the line before. The Pelicans fired their GM.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in my mind. I want to give the guy a raise. He stood up and he said, no, we're not going to cave it. We're not going to do, whether it was tampering or not, and the Anthony Davis seeds had been planted. And it was a situation to where I think the Lakers are in a tough spot. I know you and I don't spend a lot of time talking about the NBA. They're in a tough spot. They win on Paul George. That was one that they thought were beginning. They didn't even have to really try to do anything. Paul George was going to come out there. And then you go through and you got a couple of other people. You're sitting next, and this thing with Anthony Davis, now that they didn't get that done, you're sitting there now, and this is dead man walking. There's nothing they can do the rest of the year now. I don't know that they can lose their way into the lottery.
They can.
But, I kind of felt the same way. I wouldn't have brought it up. I didn't feel strongly enough that I would have brought it up first. But it just looked odd because they showed him 8 or 9 times. I'm going, wow, are they there as basketball fans? Is it a business trip? Or, no, maybe it's just cool to go to that game. I was more intrigued by, the different people you saw that they interviewed Ralph and they showed Sean Grisham and talked about the twins with Rick Barnes. And it didn't feel right to me, but a lot of things that have happened, everything he's done off the court to help society is through the roof.
Yes.
It's through the roof. It really is. And the situation is, I don't know what other athlete in my lifetime was told when he was 14, you're the second coming. I don't know what that would be like. I mean, the pressure involved in that, even the terminology that changed. You're sitting here, and he's done a lot of positive things, but I'm not sure I'm on board with this one. And going to L.A. to be in Hollywood, he's constantly. I think he's the first person I've heard in a while that's also to self-declare himself the GOAT. Winning the title with Cleveland makes me the GOAT. I'm just sitting there, by comparison, MJ when he's talking about Westbrook and Harden, and they're interviewing him, he goes, hey, which is more impressive? 31 straight 30-plus or 11 straight double-doubles or triple-doubles. Did you see his response?
Yeah.
Mike just said, winning 6 titles.
Yeah. That's what the name of the game is. Yeah, it's winning the games. I'll say this. I mean, I do think a lot about the NBA. We don't talk a lot about it, but I'll throw this out there. And I thought this before I even knew LeBron was at the game. When I just looked at the sheet about 3 hours before the game and saw the Lakers had 2 scouts there, the first thought that popped in my mind was, all right, think about the Lakers dynasty back in the 60s that I guess eventually won a title in the 70s at the end of those Celtics era. That's off the board. That was a 16-team NBA. The second group that was so great with the Lakers, they were able to land somehow Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from Milwaukee, at the time the best player in the NBA. Then they somehow get the number 1 pick in the draft and get Magic Johnson. Well, how fortunate is that you trade for the best player and then you get the number 1 pick? And then the 20 years later, they're able to fleece Orlando for Shaquille O'Neal. Then by that point, if not the best player in the NBA, I guess because Jordan was still playing then, but he was O'Neal was the best center and probably the number 2 player in the NBA. And oh, by the way, they land in a trade this obscure high school player named Kobe Bryant to be the basis of their next dynasty. So they've lucked themselves, if you want to say that, into 2 pretty interesting situations through trades and drafts. And so now I'm looking at this whole thing with Anthony Davis a different way than probably everybody else is. I'm looking at it like this. If they get Davis, they're not missing the playoffs this year. And then there's no way they can trade anybody to get a number 1 pick, a potential number 1 pick. But they're going to play themselves. The loss to the Hawks cemented this for me. I was already thinking ahead of time, all right, they're out of the playoffs right now, but they're close. When they have LeBron, they're better. They might sneak their way into a 7 or 8 seed, just enough not to get a lottery pick, and that'll screw the whole plan up. But when you lose to the Hawks the way they did, they're tanking. So when you're tanking like that, you're playing yourself in a position for, even if they just have one of those ping pong balls, Jerry, that one ping pong ball is going to have a lot of magic to it when you get to that night when they're all being drawn. I just have a strong feeling about this. And so they have if they do that and they end up with Zion and then they're able to get Anthony Davis in a trade, this 1 year is going to turn out to be just a throwaway year. You're not even going to think about it anymore. I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart, Jerry, so that's pretty developed as a conspiracy theory. But I thought about all that when I saw the Lakers had 2 scouts in the game. Why would they have 2 scouts there? There's no reason for them to have scouts here. That's why.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you told that story incredibly well. You got to throw in the other piece to the Magic Johnson Kareem thing.
Yeah.
I mean, after they got that, James Worthy.
Yeah. Thank you.
He drafted number 3, and I remember Worthy. Big game James. I was sitting there. I was arguing with one of my brothers, trying to explain to him that James Worthy was the real deal, and he was going to walk into the NBA and be next level. And this was the same argument I had about Michael Jordan. I thought that Worthy was a different game. But it was funny. I'm just sitting there going, again, all the same people, the same thing about Patrick Ewing and how bad New York needed to win that lottery ball. Yeah. And they ended up getting Patrick Ewing. And it's a big city. If you really want to be a conspiracy theorist, you got to explain to me how Portland ends up with San Louis and Chicago ends up with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
You're sitting there in your mind. I get a team going first. I get a lawyer one going first, but it's one of those things to where there's a lot of players playing basketball in college at a high level, and this is one of the ones I wanted to ask you about. Because when you're sitting there, and again, I know I've referenced them a few times in talking. When Reynolds and Singletary were there, I thought Singletary had enough games that he was going to have a nice career in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of surprised that he didn't work out that way. Mm-hmm. But the guy on UVA's team, to me, Ty Jerome is, and the Virginia fans won't like the reference, he's the second coming of J.J. Redick. If you watch Jerome play, one 6'4" and one 6'5", you're in a situation to where the catch and shoot, the nonstop effort. Now, obviously, Jerome, I think, is more fierce on the defensive end. But when Redick went to Duke, all the team could do was shoot. He probably went down there a few pounds overweight. He could shoot. And by the time he left Duke, he was somebody who I thought could play in the NBA. He doesn't get a lot of fans there. Griffin, he's in his 15th season right now. He's having his career highs across the board. Yeah. And a fun stat, he's got a 63-game streak of scoring in double digits. So I'm looking at Ty Jerome, and that's what I'm seeing. I always talked about Hunter, and Hunter being a lottery pick, but I just wasn't sure. Again, I only follow the NBA to follow the Duke and UVA players. Mm-hmm. That's my sense of the NBA. But in your current position, Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you're thinking about what happens after UVA.
Well, I think of Kyle Guy more like in approximation to J.J. Redick. Now, J.J.'s bigger and stronger, certainly, than Kyle. But from the way they play standpoint, the quick trigger is so reminiscent. Kyle's, because J.J., when he was in college and was certainly his 15 years in the NBA, he's somebody who it's uncanny how both those guys can run off screens, be falling down on their butt and make a shot. And they're almost better when they're in rhythm like that than they are when they're standing there wide open. What I like about Ty Jerome's game, because Kyle's 6'2", and I worry about his size. Now, I'll talk about him in a second, why I also don't worry about his size. But Ty Jerome's got size. He's 6'5". People don't notice that. I don't think when you watch it on TV, you don't think, wow, that Ty Jerome's a big kid. You think he's a point guard, and you think point guards are small. He's 6'5", about 200 pounds. And you see that when you see him in person. He's filled out since he got to UVA, but he's always been a big kid. And he's got sort of that old man's game. His shot from three, he doesn't have the release that Guy has in terms of, he can't run off the screen necessarily and shoot under pressure like, catch and shoot off a screen. But I tell you, he's got range out to about 30 feet, which in this day's NBA is really important. He's got a really great rhythm. He really squares up to the basket great on his 3-point shots. It's a set shot. It's not much of a jump shot. He might jump over a piece of paper on the floor if you put it there in terms of his jump shot, but he's got great rhythm, and at 6'5", he doesn't need to jump, and with that range, he doesn't need to worry about that as much either. You're not defending a guy out to 30 feet. But what he can do as well, and Guy has gotten better at this too, and I'll talk about Guy in a second as far as that goes, but Ty is always, even from his freshman year, he's got this hard nose to him on offense where he can get into the lane. He's got a beautiful teardrop jumper, which is an NBA shot. That's what makes him an NBA player. I mean, everything else he does, he's a good passer. He can see over defenders at 6'5" as a point guard. He's deceptively athletic for a guy. He doesn't look like he would be athletic, but he is. And the way he plays, great defender as far as that goes too. He defended Trey Jones. He defended Reddish. He defended Barrett both games. And he's able to keep up with them and keep them in front of him. But on offense, he can get in the lane. He can touch the paint. He's got that teardrop jumper. And so for Kyle, my worry is his size. He's 6'2", about 175, which is not NBA size. And so if this was 5 years ago, he would not be an NBA player. He would be. Singletary was his issue 10 years ago. Singletary was his size or lack of size was an issue. J.R. Reynolds, lack of size was an issue. But now you've got guys in the NBA prototypes: Seth Curry, Trey Young, small guys who are quick shooters, and who've adapted and the game's adapted to them. And so I think that Kyle can kind of follow in that mode. He'll have to play more what you call point in the NBA. He'll have to bring the ball up the floor. He brings the ball up the floor for UVA a lot. He's a good defender. He's also at 6'2". He's also out there guarding Barrett a lot. He's out there guarding Reddish a lot. Guys who are 5 or 6 inches taller than him, and he can hold his own against those guys. But to me, Jerome has the old man NBA ready game, and I think Guy, in the right situation, he could be a late first round pick, and he'll make a team and he'll surprise because the NBA loves guys who can make shots. And in this day and age in the NBA, it's not about how tall you are. It's can you get your shot off? Can you make points? Can you score points? And the quick NBA, those guys will do great. Plus, they do come from UVA, and we know they can play defense. So I think they're both. I think they're both clearly NBA guys. And I think also I'll throw this in: Jay Huff at 7'1", with his ability to shoot the three, with his ability to dribble drive. He's still a project as far as college is concerned. He'll be a 5-year guy because he redshirted a year at UVA, but he will play with his skill set. He will play in the NBA. So I think you see all 4 of those guys, including Hunter, all 4 of those guys off this team will be NBA players.
Now, as we're finishing up the NBA part of it, and I two quick ones. Joe Harris, one of my favorite Who's of all time, again, who ties out here. His last 2 games, 24 points and 25 points, and is going to be played in the three-point shooting, or participating in the three-point shooting contest. But it's going back to the guys going forward. I agree with you on Huff. Size, you just can't see size. The assumption is Hunter goes this year. Is Hunter the only one that goes early in your mind?
I think so, and I think for this reason. The scouts that we chat with before games at JPJ, they say that, and of course it's not official, but, the feeling is that if Jerome or Guy or both would think about declaring, they might be late first-round picks. They might be second-round picks. Hunter is, in everybody's mind that we've talked to, is a lottery pick. And so if you're a lottery pick, you go. Because that starts the clock ticking towards your second contract. And that's why, a lot of guys leave school early. Until the NBA addresses its rookie salary cap scale, you're going to see this continued push for guys to leave as soon as they can. And I understand it. It's your earning potential is the clock's ticking on that from the second you have a chance to make the money. So go for it. But if you're a late first round pick in the minds, if when you put your name out there and you get the word back from the NBA scouting combine, hey, you might be a late first round pick, you might be a second round pick. All right, here's why guys who are told you might be late first round or early second round picks what they have to think about. What you have to think about is, okay, if I'm a late first round pick, great, because first round picks have a guaranteed. Well, they sign a contract. The first 3 years are guaranteed. 4th year is an option. 5th year is an option. But the options include, a buyout if you don't, if the team decides not to sign you. So effectively, you got 5 years of money coming your way if you're a first round pick. If you're a second round pick, nothing is guaranteed. And so it's a roll of the dice. If you're told you're late first round / early second round pick, you could be in for the money. You could be making a decision that impacts the next 5 years of your earning potential, and the amount of money you're getting paid each year starts in the millions. Or you could be like Devin Hall. Now, Devin Hall didn't leave early. He played 5 years at UVA. But Devin Hall was a second-round pick in the NBA draft this past summer. He's playing in Australia now. He was drafted by Oklahoma City. Not enough room on the roster for him. He was told, hey, you can do one of 2 things. You can play in our G League team. We might use you during the season on a 2-way contract. And when you're on a 2-way contract in the NBA, when you're in the NBA, you get paid NBA money on a per diem basis. But when you're in the G League, you're getting paid G League money, which is a huge discrepancy. Or you can go play in Europe or, as his case, Australia, and make money that's comparable to it's a fraction of NBA money, but it's a good fraction of NBA money. G League money is something like 55, 60, 70,000 a year. I think he's making $200,000 or $300,000 in Australia in a competitive league with an standing invite from Oklahoma City that he'll be on their summer league team this year, chance to play his way onto the team next year. But that's a big roll of dice to give up. Now, he didn't have to give up anything. He played 5 years. He was at UVA for 5 years, worked towards his master's degree. In the case of Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome, if you're told late first round / early second round, you're giving up potentially a year, your last year in college, for maybe the 5-year contract or maybe nothing. So I tend to think, based on that, Hunter's gone. I think you see Jerome and Guy come back for their senior season.
That's got to be good news for anybody listening that's a Wahoo fan. Those guys are just fun to watch, and you can see that Hunter has a lot more game, if you will, from what the NBA is looking for. So I'm hoping that both those guys come back and play another year for Tony. But I've held you off long enough. It's time for you to tell me what you saw in that UVA game. What was the roller coaster of emotions for you when they were playing down at UNC?
You know, from a fan standpoint, there really wasn't as much a roller coaster of emotions as you might have thought, because I go into that game even before the actual Duke game played out, the UVA Duke game played out Saturday night. I kind of looked at that game from a scheduling standpoint as, no matter what happens UVA Duke, UVA is going to have a hard time playing at North Carolina less than 48 hours later. And I chalked it up as a loss. I mean, I was thinking, don't be upset, as a fan at your team, because this is tough. I mean, you just played, you're playing Duke, and then, of course, the way that game played out, it was such an emotional game, such an intense game, high-level game. That was another factor to throw in there. Ty Jerome, of course, is not 100% healthy. And so there was even a question. And then Mamadi Diakite gets injured during the Duke game, misses the second half. So, going into Monday night, is Diakite even going to be available? How available is Jerome going to be? If he's available, how effective is he going to be? It feels like to me it adds up to a game that the ACC scheduled to be a loss for Virginia. And I say that it's not only Virginia. I thought that there was a game earlier this year. Syracuse played on the road on a Thursday night. Virginia Tech played at home on a Monday night, at home then with Syracuse on a Saturday. So Syracuse had back-to-back road games Thursday, Saturday against a Virginia Tech team that had 5 days off and didn't have to leave Blacksburg. That scheduled a loss. Syracuse is not supposed to win that game, and they didn't. They lost by 25 points. So I looked at this and said, from a Virginia fan standpoint, I go into that UVA-Carolina game thinking, just don't get blown out. Play well, and if you run out of gas in the second half, that's okay. So what happens? Virginia has the 7-point lead at halftime. They played great in the first half. They made Carolina play their style of ball. And then Carolina's second half, they speed up the tempo. They're doing a half-court press, the half-court trap, the full-court press. They're speeding Virginia up. They're getting Virginia out of their game. Carolina goes up 6, then they go up 7. And here's exactly what I said. What happened is what I thought would happen. Virginia played well. Carolina wore them out. This is a tired Virginia team, and Carolina's going to win this game. So at that stage, I'm emotionally disinvested, and then Virginia does what Virginia does. Tony, strategy-wise, great strategy. He started Kihei Clark to start the game on Kobe White. That probably was a great strategy, but he was thinking defense, but the problem being Kihei's 5'9", Kobe White's 6'5". Kobe White lights him up, 6 of 12 from the field, 15 points. Then at the 11:32 timeout, all the talk here in Virginia is about how Tony yelled at his team during that whole timeout, and as if that's the only reason Virginia won the game is because Tony yelled at them. Hey, Tony, yell more if that's all you need to do. But what he did, also, he yelled at them, but he did this too. He took Kihei Clark out. He put DeAndre Hunter on Kobe White. And then Kihei didn't actually play the rest of the game. He played 27 of the first 28 minutes of that game, did not play the rest of the way. Hunter was that effective on White, slowed him down. He didn't make a shot from the field the rest of the way, 2 points from the foul line. That slowed Carolina down. It sped Virginia up, at least in terms of efficiency offensively. And that X's and O's move by Tony Bennett and the yelling. I'll give credit to the yelling. Okay, so people like to hear that yelling works. So yelling, but also X's and O's. And Virginia reverses course. They weren't supposed to win that game. They won the game. So now my wife will tell you, Crystal will tell you that I'm lying to you when I tell you I was not emotionally invested, because when Kyle hit each of those 2 threes in the last 2 minutes, people 3 or 4 blocks down the street probably heard me yelling with excitement about those 2 threes, especially the one where he got fouled. I really found that out. Scott and I did a podcast after the game. It was about 45 minutes later. I go downstairs after the podcast. All 6 of my dogs are still sitting on the couch with Crystal. So, yeah, I probably did get a little more invested than I would claim to. But impressive win in a situation where I just thought that Virginia was completely behind the 8 ball and they played their way out of it.
Well, it was really, you're breaking that down brought me back to an old sitcom session where after somebody speaks and you took all the words out of the mouth, you say, yeah, what he said. And I'll go one further with you. When I came up with we were talking earlier, 14-4 or 15-3 going to win the league. I was leaning towards 14-4 because I thought that both of the teams were set to lose a game. I thought that Virginia would stub their toe at UNC, and that Duke the next night would stub their toe at Louisville. And I was so sure of that I'm in the same way with you. That Virginia was just that was the house money. You're sitting there in the process, and and you're like, hey, I want an awesome game to win. And I think it was the best game they played. Following what was a pretty impressive game. You go through the non-conference season and you hold people to 40 points and you thump people. That's good. But what Virginia did in a 48-hour window was just phenomenal. It was phenomenal to fight back in the Duke game and then to win a game that Roy doesn't lose many of them. Once he has that run come at you and he gets you down, it's not too often down there in the D-Dome that you get back up from that. And the next night, before the game, because I can proudly say, in my lifetime, not once have I ever told another sports fan, my team beat your team. It's not who I am. Now, my oldest brother, who is the University of Louisville graduate, he doesn't subscribe to the same theory. He has been more than happy to tell me how the Louisville beat Duke. So I called him up 48 hours in advance and said, hey, just so that you know, expect Louisville to win that game. Expect Louisville to win that game. The schedule is set up that way. Louisville had the extra thing of wanting to prove something because they kind of gave away the Florida State game. I said, so just know in advance that Louisville is going to be in the right spot at the right time and will win that game. And that's where my 14-4 came from. I was looking at the schedule going, I think both these guys are going to come off, both teams are going to come off this game and be in a situation to where they're going to be in trouble following the game. I'm going to go on the road into those situations. And not that it would have came up as an excuse, but I know Virginia had to play a night earlier. Duke's flights got messed up to where they didn't make it to Louisville until after midnight. It made it a little bit more complicated. But it was the situation where I thought that both teams, in my mind, I can't secret what could happen that would prevent them from being number one here. I think that those two wins on national TV back-to-back after playing round 2 of the rivalry, I don't know what they'd have to do to not be number one. Now, the question on the Duke-Louisville game, and I'm listening to Kornheiser and Wilbon talk about it, and I'm anxious to get your take. The question is, was that a great comeback, or was that a horrific collapse?
That's a good one because it's so hard. I mean, because it's a little bit of both. But the collapse doesn't happen if Duke – it's strategy. It's not like Louisville just started walking over to the Duke kids and handing them the ball and say, here, go shoot a wide-open three or dunk the ball. Coach K had to do some things. It reminded me, even as it was happening, and I tweeted this, I still think it was a 10-point lead or so for Louisville. But as the collapse was happening, it reminded me of Virginia-Syracuse Elite 8 2016. At the stage, and it was actually a little more pronounced because Syracuse was down, I think, 15 when they started coming back in that Elite 8 game. And, of course, Duke was, as we know, down 23. And it was a little later, maybe about 45 seconds later for Duke. So they had less time and more points to make up. But just as so similar because both those teams, Syracuse in 2016, Duke the other night, they weren't playing well at all. There was no hope. I mean, it's not like there was some glimmer like, okay, we've been shooting well, but we haven't been defending well. So if we just start defending well, we'll win this game. They were playing horrible on offense. They were 3 of 19 from 3. They had 36 points in 30 minutes. Louisville was shooting just under 50% at that stage from the field. So they weren't shooting the lights out, but they were very effective. There was no – if the game had continued the way it was, just like the Syracuse-Virginia game 2016, if the two teams had just been playing – if you play the game out the way the first 30 minutes had been played in terms of defensive strategy, offensive strategy for both teams, Louisville wins that game by 20-some points, maybe 30 points. Just like if Boeheim doesn't go to his press, he acknowledged after the game we probably lose by 30 points. So Coach K says, hey, I got to dial it up. I mean, we're not a pressing team. We got to do something different. It's not working. We got to speed Louisville up because what they're doing right now is they're making us play offense against their half-court defense, and we're not getting anything out of our half-court offense. So we can't keep playing the same way. And they sped the game up. Louisville, and again, it's the similarities for me in the Virginia-Syracuse game 2016 are so stark because what Louisville, turned the ball over eventually. They turned the ball over 9 times in the last 8 minutes of the game. But it didn't start out where they were turning the ball over. It started out where they would beat the press, they'd get across half court, and they didn't know what to do with it because they're trying to take the air out of the ball. With 8 minutes to go in the game, they're trying to, hey, we've already gotten up here. We don't want to shoot quick shots, so, okay, let's just let Duke chase us around for a while. Well, of course, if you let Duke chase you around, they're playing half-court trap at that after they get across half court, the half-court trap. When you do that, you're not running your offense. You're just playing keep away. So, time goes off the shot clock. You don't get a good shot off. Duke goes down. Of course, you're out of position because you're being chased for 30 seconds. Duke gets a couple of shots. All of a sudden, now Louisville's like, there were 2 possessions in between 8 minutes and 7 minutes where they went from, okay, let's let Duke chase us around to let's shoot a quick shot. And they missed those shots. And so now you're completely out of everything you've done for 30 minutes to be up 23 points. You're doing none of that. And Duke is dictating to you pace. They're down 20 points. They're down 15 points. They're dictating to you, even being down that many points, exactly how things are going to go. Now, that all said, it was still, unlike the Syracuse-Virginia game, by the 4-minute TV timeout of that game, Syracuse already had the lead. At the 9-minute mark, they're down 15 points. By 4 minutes to go, they're in the lead. 4 minutes to go in this one, Duke's still down 10 points. So it wasn't like, they made a barrage of threes. They cut into it, slowly, surely, and got there. But Louisville, obviously what was it? It was 59-36. Louisville had 10 points in the last 9 minutes. They shot 2 of 12 from the field, had the 9 turnovers. And a Duke team that to that point had shot less, it was less than 30% from the field. They went 9 of their last 13. They went 4 of 9 from 3 down the stretch. Reddish got hot. Barrett made a 3, I think. And you had Trey Jones, again pressing in the backcourt, getting a couple steals. It was. So your question was it did Duke win the game or did Louisville lose the game? I guess in the end, I want to say Duke won the game because strategy-wise, they made Louisville get out of its comfort zone, and that's the only way they win that game.
Well, it was funny because the stat that's not getting talked about, that was the mind-boggling stat to me, okay? Because there's 2 things Duke doesn't do well this year. 1, the three-point shot. 2, amazingly, free throw. It's unbelievable how poorly Duke shoots free throws. You got a guy shooting 75%. He's the best guy on the team. During that stretch, he went 8 for 9. Where does that come from? No, that's not going to be any highlight reel. That's not going to be the lead story to this. And going back to our conversation before the Duke UVA game, I said for Duke to get to Minneapolis, one thing has to happen. Cam Reddish has to keep shooting. And he was having another subpar night. And earlier in the season, when he's having a subpar night, he kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
Okay? That wasn't what happened against Louisville. Those were Curry 3-point shots. Those were, NBA plus. And very calmly hit all 3 of them. And that's what it's going to take for them to get where they need to go is even when your shot's not falling, if you're a shooter, you got to keep shooting. And then the aggressiveness to go to the hoop after the end. And, thankfully they saw the guy was inside the arc. But the funny part for me when this, and I get the level of information after a Duke game that you get out of UVA game. But everybody saw the interview. Everybody who was still awake saw the interview when they asked Zion, "What did Coach say to you?" And what did he say to you guys? He goes, "I don't coach losers. I coach winners. I promise you guys, if you go out there and give me effort, I'll coach you to this win." Okay, I thought that was a great line, and I appreciated that. Well, 2 hours after that, I started getting the clips and the emails and things up. And Coach K, they asked him about that statement.
Uh-huh.
He said, "Yeah, I said that. I'm not sure I believed it." And I just think that makes me like the guy that much more. And how humble he was, and how he genuinely felt bad for the Louisville players.
Well, because Louisville now has the displeasure of the two most memorable losses of the last 2 years. Last year, blowing that game against Virginia, 4-point lead with less than a second to go at home, and then now they lose this one, 23-point lead with 9 minutes. It's the biggest comeback of that nature, 23-point comeback, 9:04 to go in Duke history. That's saying a lot because Duke's won some games over the years. So Louisville. That's where you start thinking, gosh, maybe it was a collapse. I mean, I want to credit Duke, but and I looked it up because I watched the game too. And when you watch the game, sometimes you're not thinking, especially early in that run, the first 4 or 5 minutes of that run. All right, yeah, Duke got it down to 14, they got down to 12, okay, but they're not going to win this game. And then afterwards, you realize, wow, where did this really turn? So I went back and looked at the play-by-play, the official play-by-play in the box score, because I didn't remember. Of course, again, when you're watching, you don't note these things maybe so closely. I was trying to figure out when Chris Mack called timeouts. He did call a couple of timeouts, so it's not like he just surrendered. I mean, he tried to do something. But, gosh, I don't know what you could do if you're Louisville. I mean, because then a thought pops into your head, and then I've already answered it for myself at least. But if you're Duke, and all you got to do is scramble everybody, why don't you do that for 40 minutes? The answer being they're not that deep where they can scramble for 40 minutes. But I wrote a column after the game where I said, wow, and this is kind of where I am with this Duke team. They don't have to do this every night. They don't have to shoot 13 of 21 from 3 every night. They don't have to be able to come back from 23 points every night. But now, if you're a team getting ready to face them, especially in the NCAA tournament, I mean, yes, they have 2 with Carolina left. They have Syracuse on the road left in the ACC, of course, the ACC tournament, then the NCAA tournament. Okay, so if you're preparing for them in the NCAA tournament and any of those big games coming up, you have to, if you look at what Virginia did defensively the first game, and Duke shredded them in the lane and, shot 23 of 34 in the paint. So second time, Virginia completely takes away the paint. They make 13 of 21 from 3. Louisville takes away everything for 30 minutes, and then Duke scrambles and beats them on the road. They have a lot of weapons in their arsenal. I mean, they've got the players. They've got the individual players and matchups that can work, but you have to be able to think now. Gosh, if we take away their inside game, we also have to take away their outside game. Can't do both. We have to be careful if we have a big lead against them. We can't necessarily just put them away. They're going to scramble us. We have to be prepared for the scramble mode in the last 10 minutes. Boy, that's just a lot of things for this team that already has all the talent in the world. They also have some of these other things that just seem unfair for a team with that level of talent.
Well, one of the things, and again, this will be the first year, assuming that I can finish it out. There's been a number of years where I've watched every snap of a Duke football game all the way through. This will be, barring getting tripped up down the stretch, I've seen every possession of every game they've played this year. And it's been a fun ride, which is what I said it would be. But the thing for me in this game is I kept thinking, thank God I was there when they were playing Gonzaga. In other words, I've seen this happen to them. I've seen this happen to them where Gonzaga had them by 16 and was embarrassing them. They were embarrassing them in Maui. And the difference is they had 5 tries at the end. They had 5 shots to tie the game. And I kept thinking, I go, wow, I think that's going to help. I think the Kentucky game actually made it hard. You come out there and they're hyped. You come out there and you make Kentucky look like a junior varsity basketball team. So now you're going, okay, well, what are they going to do next? Oh, they're going to win the next game by 60. And it's just not realistic. And similar to Virginia. Now, Virginia is getting ready to play Notre Dame. Okay? So what did they do? They surgically removed body parts against Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Played a near perfect game and destroyed Notre Dame. Now, tomorrow, maybe they'll do that again. But maybe they won't. Maybe Gray will be able to make some adjustments and keep the game close. So it's one of those things, that's where it gets tricky when you start playing a team a second time. Because I'm sure there's a lot of Virginia fans that are looking at tomorrow as it's almost a day off. And you're sitting there in that thought process because that's the thing with Duke when they set the bar so high so early. And there was a situation where they didn't get scared. Also, got to give Williamson credit. Zion picked up his 4th foul. That was a frustration foul. It was a silly foul. He picked up his 4th foul. He played that 9+ minutes with 4 fouls. Now, I did want to add one other Duke note because it was ever so slightly disappointing to hear that the one thing this team has been good about is there's enough people, Chris, in the league or in the college basketball that take Duke still from Christian Laettner games. These guys have been phenomenal on not adding to that. You always hear the line about bulletin board and all of this, and you see all the post games, and just NBA players say, "Oh, they'll beat the Chapters." They're not saying that. The Duke kids aren't saying that. But Barrett, again, feeling good about the win at JPJ, he makes a comment. He goes, we don't mind wearing the black uniforms. They're undefeated in the black uniforms. He goes, it's the other team's new. And I'm sure that he'd like to have that one back. And to show you the magnitude of that one comment that he made, Louisville flips the switch and decides to wear black at home and has a blackout. Yeah. And they felt the need. They felt they need to talk about it 6 times that I counted during the telecast. And I'm going, wow, this young man made one comment. And because he was feeling good about playing a near-perfect game at Virginia, and this is what's going to happen. And it was funny. So, from a standpoint, one of the Duke writers actually wrote a column this week saying, I need you guys to quit cheering for us. And he's talking about the fans and everybody wants to see Zion, and they don't really care if their team loses. They want to see Zion. He goes, it's messing with our mojo. He said, we do better than everybody's hanging on us. And I'm sitting there going, that might be the single stupidest column I've ever read. But it was funny, and I felt bad for Barrett, and I'm sure that he'd like to have that one back. But you're sitting there in the Duke games now, going forward, and you're going, okay, what team's going to show up and play NC State? Is it going to help you that you can come back from 23 down, or is it going to allow you to take some possessions off and give your, okay, it doesn't really matter, we'll just flip the switch? That's the flip side to that could be a little concerning.
Yeah, I started to write that column, Jerry, and then I ended up writing the column about how they have another weapon in their arsenal with the comeback. But I would worry if that was my team, as you know, a fan of that. If I was a fan of that team, that could be a negative lesson, and it might not. It's not going to matter, I don't think, against NC State. But you know, they still. I mentioned they got 2 with Carolina left. They've got 1 at Syracuse left. They've got, of course, whatever they have in the ACC tournament, whether they have an NCAA tournament. You know, I mean, they are that talented. You know, we as much as and whoever wrote that column saying everybody's rooting for them on the road. I don't see it. What I see is because ESPN has hyped them that there's even more hatred for Duke basketball, the brand, than there's ever been. And whether it's fair or not, that's the case. But when Trae Young last year for Oklahoma, he's not a Duke kid, he's Oklahoma, but ESPN went overboard with Trae Young, and Trae Young had a backlash. So this year it's Zion, and he's the anti-hero this year, if you want to say. But I would worry about the flip the switch thing because, you know, they did it against Louisville. Louisville's a good team. I don't think Louisville's an elite team. I mean, they're 8-4 in the ACC. They beat Carolina at Carolina. They lost to Carolina at home. They lost to Florida State. Now they've lost to Duke, and they blew a game against Duke. I think that they're a good team, but they're not a team that is going to be in a Final Four type team. Carolina home and home. I guess the first game is in Durham. The Syracuse games on the road. You can't go to the Carrier Dome against that 2-3 zone and have 36 points with 10 minutes to go and just think, oh yeah, we'll press Syracuse and we'll beat Syracuse in the Carrier Dome that way. You can't do that. If you're in Charlotte and you're playing either UNC or UVA, either in the semifinals or finals, you can't just turn it on. You got to play. You got to play 40 minutes against that type of team. I would be worried about that potentially negative lesson. I mean, I know Coach K, obviously, he's won a lot of games, every level you can imagine. But I would worry that the kids out there might just say, oh, yeah, like you just said, Jerry, take some possessions off. We're okay. We came back from 23. We don't need to worry about this. We're good. And at the wrong time. I mean, I felt like this, Jerry, about last year's UVA team, and of course, it reared its head at the absolute wrong time. But they really didn't have a lot of game pressure last year. They lost the game in early December against West Virginia on the road. They lost 1 game in the ACC at home, overtime to Virginia Tech. Most of the last season in the ACC, the game at Duke notwithstanding, they won that game, but it was a tight game. Most of the season in the ACC, they had 10-point leads. I mean, they double-digit leads. I figured it out at one point. It was like 75% of the time they had a 10-point lead, which is just an amazing stat. They were an amazing team, but they faced no pressure. And then they faced pressure at one time and they lose. The one game they faced pressure, they don't know how to deal with it. This Duke team faced pressure, but I'm not sure if overcoming it as easily as they did could be a good thing either because, again, that was an amazing accomplishment. But you can't just do that every night. You can't rely on that every night, and I would worry about that if I were them.
Well, it's funny because your Trae Young comparison is an awesome one. For me, and just a short thought from where Duke came to be part of my life is Swanako, Banks, and Jamaica. And as a 16-year-old, I decided I'm going to go to school and I'm going to play basketball for Duke. Well, I conceded. I thought I did believe that at that point in my life I could have played small college basketball. And I realized I wasn't going to play basketball at Duke, but what I didn't know was I couldn't get into Duke. And all right, together, I'm sitting there, I lived on campus, and I talked back to the people that were smart enough to do this. And loved the school, loved the area. And this was before they ever won a national championship. And it's tough for me because I love the school. And looking back, I wouldn't let me in there either. I love the school, and it is a brand. And I have no tolerance for people who love the brand. Mm-hmm. And you're sitting there, but ESPN does what? They pump the brand. They pump the brand. It's a situation where running through this, and well, I just mentioned I've seen every second of every game they play. I haven't had to look at all of you do that. You're in a situation. I think there's one coming up where I'm going to have to maybe go to the ACC network to watch. And you're sitting there, and there's somebody who'll see something of mine that says Duke on it, and like, oh yeah, and I'm like, no, I don't want to have the conversation because you have a lot of people. My least favorite fan in the world, when I lived in Virginia, is the person who would say, yeah, my football team is Virginia Tech, and my basketball team is UNC. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
How does that work? In my head, again, I understand. I'm the one on the island, literally, I guess. But I think you're supposed to love school. You're supposed to love a school. You're supposed to support the school, whether it's they have a real good team and that's where the love affair came for the football team. They were the bad news bears, but ESPN does make it harder on it. And then the amount of NBA people talking about this is, how many times there's an argument. I thought what Tippin said about Zion. Well, if I was him, I would quit playing right now because you're jeopardizing your shoe contract. I'm just going, why does that have to be part of the time? I don't know. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's true. Maybe he could blow out his knee. And when they asked Zion about that, he just kind of chuckled. He goes, this is my one chance to play college basketball. There's no way I would quit doing it. Then there's the argument of, well, would they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers without Kevin Love? Why do we have to have that conversation? Why can't we just watch them play basketball? But it is funny from that standpoint, but the Trae Young was a good comparison. I felt like halfway through the year last year, I didn't want to listen to anybody talk about a kid. He just was a situation where he could just overhype. But anyway, like I said, it was cool to watch, and it was a situation to where here's the debate that came up in reference to Duke. Because if you ask a Louisville fan, who's your biggest rival? And the Louisville fan is going to tell you it's Kentucky. I don't think that the Louisville players get any more exciting, or the crowd gets any more exciting than when they're playing Duke. And again, you mentioned old school basketball. Now that, and I hope it never happens to you, but Dean Smith got with at UNC. You're the biggest game on everybody's team. Yeah. You're the biggest game on everybody's coming for you. Everybody's going to do whatever they can do to get you. And that's the one thing about UVA is they're just too darn nice for somebody to hate them. It's a situation that I say that with a big smile on my face because I'm incredibly proud of my daughter's diploma. And I hope that never changes. I hope the worst thing anybody can ever say about UVA basketball is it's too slow. And I saw some stuff from Bennett this week talking about that very thing. So the hype machine is in full mode, and it's probably the 23-point comeback added fuel to the hype fire for sure.
Yeah, once Kyle Guy cut the man bun off, that was the one thing that people hated, and that went away. Now the UMBC thing, it was kind of funny. One of the reporters who covers UVA was who went to Chapel Hill for the UNC game. Just like at a lot of places, a number of UNC fans in the front row, UNC student fans, I guess you could say, sitting in the front row of the student section, wearing UMBC jerseys. And the same report so the reporter took a picture of them before the game, like an hour before the game, whatever, posted it to Twitter. After the game, took another picture of that area. The jerseys had been left. the students who were wearing them left them there because their team got beat by the team that lost to UMBC. So that's the thing that Virginia, whatever difficulty Virginia's got to overcome, it's a pretty big one. I mean, I don't know if I would want to be Duke or Virginia right now. They both have their issues. Duke has got the extra hype, and Virginia's got the infamy of having lost to the 16 seed, and both are crosses to bear that are interesting as far as that goes. And what's interesting about Virginia is, except for Duke, they've beaten everybody they played this year. So, and I've seen some chatter on UVA fan message boards to the effect that UMBC might owe us a kickback because we've helped them sell an awful lot of memorabilia the last 9 or 10 months. So they might want to think about some donation or something like that. But it's been very interesting to see how that has been working, and it's fun, I suppose. But yeah, it's college sports. And I would throw one thought in too, Jerry, about your Zion Williamson comment, and then as we're starting to wrap up here, I guess you talked about Zion saying, he gets to play college basketball for this year. I thought about LeBron in that context on Saturday night. JPJ was as loud, if not louder, than it's ever been, and it's a loud place, and it's had some big games played there, and it's been loud. And I thought to myself a couple times during those particularly loud stretches that LeBron sitting there with his agent and his couple teammates from the Lakers, he didn't get to experience that. NBA games aren't like that. Even Game 7, the Cavaliers and the Warriors a couple years ago when he won on the road at Golden State, it's not the same. People in the NBA fans don't get into games, even Game 7s, the way college fans get into games. And I actually thought to myself, when it was as loud as it was, I wonder if LeBron's thinking right now, man, I never got to experience this. This is pretty cool. I wondered about that.
Well, let's go back to the game day. Now, here's the thing about I don't know Kyle Guy personally. I actually have never met Kyle Guy. I had to think Kyle Guy is a very likable young man. So you go to the game day, and where is Kyle Guy? He's in the crowd.
Yeah,
he's part of it. They make the camera flip to him X number of times. And he's a college student loving the college experience. Okay? Now, that's what I saw. Now, but if somebody wanted to be negative, he shouldn't have been there. He should have been in the dorm room resting. He should have been looking at film. He should have been. Why? Why not let the college students, athletes, have a fun college experience? Were you surprised at all that he was there and enjoying it?
Well, there was a thought on my part saying, yeah, Kyle, you should be resting. But on the other hand, the game was at 6 o'clock. I actually got to the game about 3:15 or so. I mean, I was amped up. Why am I getting to a 6 o'clock game at 3:15? Literally, Scott German and I sat there for about an hour and a half before we could even go eat dinner in the media room. And we were there that early. We're just chatting about basketball, watching no one even warm up. There wasn't even anybody until about 4 o'clock. Nobody even came out to warm up. So we're sitting in an arena with like 10 people walking around JPJ because that's how amped up I was. When I walked in there at 3:15, Kyle was walking at 3:15. I actually thought to myself, because I had to go through, when you go at media, you go in the security gate. You got to walk through with your computer and all this stuff. They got to check you, make sure you're not trying to bring a bomb in or something like that. And Kyle had to walk through too. He had to, just like I had to go through the security gate, leave my keys in my cell phone, and walk through the airport like scanner. Kyle had to do the same thing, and I thought to myself, come on, Kyle's not going to do anything. He's Kyle. And he had a big grin on his face. He looked like he was ready to play basketball. He was there 3 hours early too. Yeah, they're into that. It's not a business for them. It is fun, so actually, the fan in me was a little concerned when I first saw it, and you see the grin on his face. Now I'll say this about Kyle Guy too. All the guys I've covered who UVA basketball dating back to the late '90s, he is by far the favorite guy I've had in this sense. He is even now as a junior at UVA, a third year at UVA, he's everybody's kid brother on the team. They all pick on him in a very friendly way, but pick on him mercilessly because his personality is such that he takes it. He's sort of like the kid. When I say kid brother, I think that kind of tells you he's just the guy that everybody ribs. Last year, for example, in the locker room after the ACC championship, he's there carrying around this big trophy. He was the ACC tournament MVP, and the trophy. I mean, he's 6'2", 175. The trophy's as big as he is, and it's such that usually you could see somebody needing to help him. It's a huge trophy, and he's lugging it around, going from seat to seat, so everybody can see his trophy. I mean, it was almost like the little kid brother showing off, that he won the spelling bee, and he's telling everybody about how he won the spelling bee, and everybody's giving him a hard time for winning the trophy. And one of the reporters asked him, did you need to be able to prove you could dunk to win the trophy? And he's taking it in stride, and Isaiah Wilkins is defending him, and it's just fun to see. He has more fun than anybody I've ever seen. Now, there are guys in the UVA locker room. Tony recruits, the Malcolm Brogdons, the serious guys. Mike Tobey was a pretty serious guy. On this team, Ty's a pretty reserved guy. A lot of guys who fit Tony's personality, quiet, confident, but don't have a lot to say. Kyle's not that guy. And so, no, I wasn't surprised to see him there because that's just his personality.
And I was sitting there, and I loved that he was there. I thought it was awesome. And then there's a part of me who's anti-negative. I just don't like anything that's negative. I just don't. And in fact, in being a sports writer for 20 years, I can proudly state I never wrote a negative word about anything. And I'm going, I sure hope Kyle Guy has a good game. Because if he goes 2 for 16, somebody is going to write a story saying Kyle Guy should have passed on going to game day. Uh-huh. And that made me pull for even harder because they just kept showing him. And I was just sitting there going, I thought he played a great game. And that's what college is about. And what spurred that thought was you talking about LeBron never having that opportunity. So, yeah. And then we're getting near the end. I gotta try to sneak in 3 quick thoughts. One, a shout out to the Liberty Flames. They are 22-5, and I know that they kind of fly under the radar, and they just got a huge win this week. They beat Louisville, which is a past 20 wins for the season. So great job for the Flames. On the women's side, Chris, you got 4 teams within 1 game of the league: Louisville, Notre Dame, NC State, and Miami. Then come down the wire. You got 4 teams separated by 1 game. And the third one was you. We were joking about you giving the game day group some slack for me about the Pac-12. I had to smile, and not that I'm going to give you credit for it happening, but I had to smile when on the game day episode, the first time they broke away and talked about something other than UVA youth. They were talking about Bible for the University of Washington. Which I had done leading up to that. And so that part made me smile. And in my head, I'm going, Chris did that for me. So, but anyway, the Liberty Flames having a heck of a year for the people there in Virginia. And it was a fun week with a lot of fun stuff. And tomorrow is going to line up once again that I'm going to have a chance to watch 4 consecutive ACC basketball games, which will be fun to do.
And I'll wrap up by noting that teams that we cover here on AFP, now we cover obviously Virginia very, very closely, but we regularly update our readers on Liberty. So, yes, they're tied for first now in the ASUN Conference, that big win at Lipscomb. Lipscomb had been unbeaten in the conference. Now they're both 11-1. So we cover Liberty. They're right now in a good position as far as winning that conference and going to the NCAA tournament. We cover VCU regularly. VCU's first place in the Atlantic 10. Good position, and they actually are their net ranking suggests they could be an at-large team if they don't make the tournament as the A10 automatic qualifier. So you got Liberty, you got VCU. We regularly cover Norfolk State. We made a good contact there a few years ago. Norfolk State's first right now in the MEAC, and we also regularly cover ODU. Jeff Jones, former UVA guy, he's right now first in the Conference USA. Selection Sunday in Virginia. I mean, all this talk about Virginia, obviously. Virginia Tech is going to be an NCAA tournament team, but you've got Liberty, you've got VCU, you've got ODU, you've got Norfolk State. You've got some teams on Selection Sunday. We might have a lot of Virginia teams in that field of 68.
That's going to be fun, and I have to laugh because how many different schools I have ties to, and Old Dominion is another one. I like Jeff Jones, and that's where my brother started his school just pulling that, and we used to live right off campus there. And they keep getting close. And I keep thinking that Jeff Jones is one big-time player away from not only getting to the tournament, but maybe sneaking out a couple of wins. And like I said, what's happening down at Liberty right now, I got to admit, I did not realize that Norfolk State was having as strong of a year. But, yeah, you could possibly be looking at six wins. And that's saying that nobody sticks in and wins the tournament somehow.
Yeah. We root for Richie McKay, former longtime assistant Tony Bennett. We root for Jeff Jones and Brian Stith. Brian Stith's an assistant on the staff down there at ODU, and their star players, B.J. Stith, a transfer from UVA. So lots of UVA ties there as well. And, of course, VCU. We played VCU this year. VCU played us tough in Charlottesville, and we'd love to see them get a bid just to kind of validate how tough they played us. So, all right, that's a lot of basketball in an hour and a half. That's covering about as much as, including about 20 minutes on the NBA, which is rare for us here, Jerry. So I think we should sign off. I want to wish you a good week. Have some fun tomorrow watching all that ACC, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week.
It's always a pleasure, sir.